artist. I was born in Saudi Arabia. I was raised in Washington, D.C., and I currently live in Los Angeles. And I have been making music, touring, performing, recording, all that stuff for almost 10 years now. So
you've been out there for a while.
Yeah.
So I want to start with just some of the things that are taking place in the Middle East,
Sure.
and then kind of move into the music, if that's okay?
Of course.
All right. After the successful forced exile of Ben Ali from Tunisia and the ousting of Mubarak from Egypt, and now with the death of Gaddafi in Libya, describe to me what's going on in your heart and mind.
Wow. Well, you know, I'd say it's a mix of a lot of different kinds of emotions, you know. Certainly inspired by the youth movements that have kind of really led all these revolutions. They really are, as I said before, kind of the wind in the sails of these revolutions. The youth are, and they are 60% of the population in the Middle East, so this is effectively their revolution, revolutions. And the future is in their hands, you know. Now, in these moments, you know, of one could say chaos, you can worry about opportunists who kind of try to take advantage of these situations. And so that's something that's kind of looming. But I'd say first and foremost, really before anything, you know, my sincerest condolences to anybody who's lost loved ones in these uprisings. Many of them have been very violent and have taken a really long time and taken quite a toll on the population, not just physically, but even mentally and emotionally. And so I just hope that, you know, people can stay positive. That's something I always try to do, and try to focus on, you know, being a part of the solution rather than part of the problem, and really kind of working towards, you know, that real semblance of like freedom and democracy and human rights and equality that I think is at the root of all of these revolutions, and that people really want to see, you know, take place all across the region.
Speaking of democracy and freedom, that, as I said before, is the clear cry of the heart of the people. But in the West, there's this whole expression and expansion of, you know, religious-based terror and fear. And, you know, how is this going to play out in the West? And ultimately, you know, what's going to happen to our oil? And who takes the credit, you know, which administration gets credit.
That is the land of unconfirmed.
Yes, we came, we saw, he died.
Did it have anything to do with your visit?
No, oh, I'm sure it did.
Describe to me your thoughts on that. How, and also, how big of a role does religion play, and should Westerners be afraid?
Well, I mean, I think religion certainly plays a role. It would be naive to think that somebody would be willing to go out on the streets and literally, I mean, face death without having some sort of faith, you know, in something greater, and some reason to really kind of push them out there day in and day out, you know, especially for the revolutions that have taken, you know, months, like Libya and like Syria and Yemen, etc. So it's no surprise to hear people kind of really calling to God in those moments, you know. That said, I don't think that you know, it really helps the Western audiences and the West in general, if that's a term to be used, to really kind of play up this boogeyman idea of, you know, extremism really taking over these movements and stuff like that.
Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden, the leader of al-Qaeda, and a terrorist who's responsible for the murder of thousands of innocent men, women, and children.
Michelle Bachmann believes that Arab Spring is not a good thing. Now, it is largely peaceful revolutions throughout the Arab world that is bringing democracy, but apparently that's a bad thing, and that Barack Obama is at fault. Let her explain.
I am probably even more concerned about the foreign policy implications because of what Barack Obama has done to the nation. Just like Jimmy Carter in the late 1970s didn't have the back of the Shah of Iran, we saw the Shah fall and the rise of the Ayatollah, and we saw the rise and the beginnings of radical jihad, which have changed this world and changed this nation. So too under Barack Obama, we saw him put a lot of daylight between our relationship with our ally Israel. And when he called upon Israel to retreat to its indefensible 1967 borders, don't think that message wasn't lost on Israel's 26 hostile neighbors. You want to know why we have an Arab Spring? Barack Obama has laid the table for an Arab Spring by demonstrating weakness from the United States of America. The #1 duty of the president is to be the commander-in-chief.
If we really focus our ears and our eyes on what's happening on the ground, we'll see that, many of these movements have certainly a secular tone to them, if not a tolerance that is something that we've really needed to see in the region for a long time, where you see Christian and Muslim groups working together, where you see different sects who typically don't necessarily work together, come together for the purposes of this greater purpose or this greater good. That said, there is sectarianism, in a place like Syria, for example. It is certainly something that I think, both sides have been kind of fanning, and people have been hinting at some sort of like civil war, down the road. And, you look at what happened in Iraq, what happened in Lebanon, both bordering Syria, and, you can kind of see that happen. That said, I grew up in a Syria, or I grew up knowing a Syria that was always full of, a real appreciation for the diversity of the population, and especially the religious diversity. And so I would hope that kind of, those kinds of notions of tolerance and stuff like that are really what kind of rise to the surface after all of this. And as far as, how the West kind of interprets it, or what the real, intentions are behind all of this, whether it's their foreign military intervention in a place like Libya, or it's how much they kind of play a role in brokering different kind of deals around the region. I think people in the Middle East generally understand that there's a bit of selfishness when it comes to American foreign policy. So if it's not in their best interest, they're not going to jump to, to do anything or to help anybody. But that's just kind of the world that we live in, So the people of the Middle East are aware of this, and that's why you hear them often say, we don't want foreign intervention, or no, we're not going to do things your way or on your own terms. And, you see the American government, or at least the Obama administration, kind of change its tone with respect to the different revolutions as they kind of took place. With Egypt, they really dragged their feet, they really shuffled their feet to figure out where they stood. With Libya, they kind of ran in there and spearheaded this NATO movement or intervention. And a lot of people obviously point towards the billions of dollars of oil that are there for them to kind of reap the rewards of. Many of the people who kind of shook Gaddafi's hand and hugged him and embraced him, a lot of the world leaders, who did that a couple years ago, were the same people who are, calling for intervention. So I think the people of the Middle East are aware of this. Many of them would call it hypocritical, and that's, not baseless, certainly not baseless. But at the end of the day, again, just for me personally, I try to focus on the positive elements that I think can kind of be drawn from all of these different types of situations. And for someone like me who's literally straddling the two worlds, it is important to be able to do that, and to kind of see past that and try to focus on something positive,
Can you hear me, Masiri? Smiling was what I'm blessed to be here. حمام السلام افتحي أجنحتك وطيري. وين الوعي وين؟ امشوا معي هين بين الجبلين عين حبل الطرفين. امهاتنا حبت ذاتنا مو عجبهن سباتنا. هذا الحكي بين اخواتنا زين العرب والامريكان. والله يرحم كل امواتنا اغاني مثل مهاتنا. اذا ان العين بالعين ما صفى عنا عيون بالشام. بلاد الشام من فلسطين لجبال لبنان قبل ما اخترعوا الحدود من اسكندرون لكردستان. فهمان جنكيز خان ما خالد ما خانونا. اولاد العم بس دمنا دمهم بني ادم بنوا ذنبهم على كتافنا شلنا همهم. ليه؟ الله بيعلم بس لك الفتاش والبسكليت احسن لك من 100 مليون مسدس. تعرف ليه؟ لانه مو عجبهم بسمتك بس تبتسم رسمتك. شاب عربي ومثقف تعطيهم خاتمتك. وإذا لسه مو راضين ذكرهم كلام إيليا نص الطين ساعة إنه طين. وهي هي قضاء وقدر يا حبيبي.
First, they ignore you. Then they laugh at you. Then they fight you. Then you win.
I heard him say the revolution won't be televised. Al Jazeera proved him wrong. Twitter has him paralyzed. 80 million strong and ain't no longer gonna be terrorized. Organized, mobilized, vocalized. On the side of truth, from Madunya's living proof that it's a matter of time for the chickens home to roost. Boo Azizi lit the hoof. And it slowly ignited the fire within Arab people to fight it. From Tunis to Khan Yunis, the new moon shines bright as the man's spoon was as mass as the man writes in the spell rumors of disunity, communally removing the tumors, rotten hukumas. We're making headway, chanting down the dictators, getting rid of dead weight, opening the floodgates like the streets of Jeddah. بوابة الثورة مفتوحة وما بقى نسد. We've been empowered to speak, and though the future is uncertain, man, at least it isn't bleak. When our children can be raised not in a cage but on a peak, the inheritors of Mother Earth are meek. Freedom isn't given by oppressors, it's demanded by oppressed. Freedom lovers, freedom fighters, free to gather and protest for the God-given rights, for the freedom of the press. We know freedom is the answer. The only question is, who's next?
It's very bad for my government. I haven't food, I haven't anything. Me and my children, I will die today.
Time to push, and we ain't falling back now. Time to fight, 'cause we are all we have now. Do you hear me calling out for backups? Trying to keep a lookout for better days. Time to push, and we ain't falling back now. Time to fight, 'cause we are all we have now. Do you hear me calling out for backups? Trying to keep a lookout.
Weathering the storm, pleasure to be born. News media disseminated heaven's gate level of alarm. Third person dictate, couldn't sever him till dawn. 3 mil in the street, we will live in peace. But first, God rest the soul of those who choose to be free. From poverty they rose, knee deep in robbery. Souls will plummet and burn like Muhammad Bouaziz. Al Jazeera logos deliver the state, now here's his own soul. Karma waits for no man. Your presidential charm and armor break out a place in your own homeland. Now dip like Meza. Imagine a million human march to Gaza. From Qahira to Baghdad, سياستهم ساحرة. علامة الآخرة. You will see it.
Time to push, and we ain't falling back now. Time to fight, 'cause we are all we have now. Do you hear me calling out for backups? Trying to keep a lookout for better days. Time to push, and we ain't falling back now. Time to fight, 'cause we are all we have now. Do you hear me calling out for backups? Trying to keep a lookout for better days.
And that's where the beef ends. You should learn a lesson from oppression where it begins. Black, white, yellow, it don't matter what race. Before you break us, you gon' push us off the deep end. Different countries, same struggle, we even. Contemplate on squeezing when our kids ain't eating. Only other difference is it's hot all year round there. Wintertime and your kids ain't freezing. But we all starving, all grieving. And the people with the power ain't got hard enough to feed us. I follow the procedures and I study my Quran. This is modern day science, we just waiting on Jesus. You should be the teacher on Quran to your kids that are wasting time watching Kelly Ripa and Regis. This is Egypt, home of the ruins. Last time we needed change, it took Musa to move them. Operation get rid of the pharaoh. Now we getting rid of who ain't willing to share no bread with the people. We are all equal. True men of God, fear God, don't fear no person that's walking on the face of the earth. If you got a tank, knife, gun, bow, or an arrow, long as it's breath, then there's still hope left. So let hope rise like the eye of a sparrow.
Time to push, and we ain't falling back now. Time to fight, 'cause we are all we have now. Do you hear me calling out for backups? Trying to keep a lookout for better days. Time to push, and we ain't falling back now. Time to fight, 'cause we are all we have now. Do you hear me calling out for backups? Trying to keep a lookout for better days.
Won't be just niggas, won't be just spics. A-raps, packies, rednecks, and hits. Leaders ain't helping them feeding the kids. The leaders helping pigs eating their kids. Back on my Elijah eating the liver. Run up in the White House with keys to the crib. The House and the Senate ousted in a minute. Take these streets to Wall Street, this one's for chemics. They on that Gandhi, they on that Cheeto. Put that Che turn that Cairo Fuego. Hard for the press to find a scapegoat when every man, woman, child's at the table. They think they John Adams, they think they Ben Franklin. They want democracy, what them Arabs thinking. World leaders now can see when keep people from eating, the people will eat now.
Time to push, and we ain't falling back now. Time to fight, 'cause we are all we have now. Do you hear me calling out for backups?